Hello, my name is TATT from Andong, and today I'm gonna explain about Ukraine war. Ukraine war. First, I'm going to talk about the start of the war and why it started. Second, I'm gonna tell you about Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukraine president. Third, I'm going to mention about pain of the war. Lastly, I'm going to explain about the war and the world situation, and we will have a quiz time. Before I start this presentation, I'll show you a short video about the Ukraine war.
그 talk about만 about이 되고 나머지는 about이 안 돼요. 그냥 explain, mention, you know, something.
On the 24th of February 2022, Russia attacked Ukraine. The resulting war has already killed thousands and resulted in millions of refugees. This war of aggression violates international law and has been harshly criticized by governments around the world. To understand how it came to this, we must first take a closer look at the history of the country. Ukraine was founded in 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union, although its people, the Ukrainians, have been around for far longer. Throughout its history, the country played an important role in bridging the gap between East and West. This is reflected in its name, which when translated means something akin to borderland, but also in the culture and demographics of the country. Western Ukraine is a lot closer to the rest of Europe, while Eastern Ukraine has a larger Russian influence. This meant that over the years, the country was pulled increasingly between the front lines of East and West. Both sides had their supporters. One option was to pursue a closer relationship with Russia. That promised security through a strong ally. On the other hand, there was the possibility to work together with the West, where a possible membership in the European Union promised economic help for the relatively poor country, and a NATO membership could mean protection and independence from Russia. One government followed the next, some pro-Russian, some pro-European. A clear decision was never made, though, and the tensions within the country grew and grew. One result of these tensions were the countrywide protests in 2013 against the then pro-Russian government. Russia capitalized on the ensuing chaos, annexed Crimea, and started supporting pro-Russian rebels in eastern Ukraine at the same time. Ever since 2014, there has been ongoing conflict in this area, and any attempts at peace talks have proven largely ineffective. In February 2022, the Putin-led Russia formally recognized the independence of these regions in the east and started a large-scale invasion of Ukraine a few days later. Now the regional conflict in eastern Ukraine has escalated to a countrywide war that has been going on ever since. Still, there is one big question that hasn't been answered. Why is Russia attacking? And what is going through Putin's head? The answer to these questions largely depends on who one asks. According to Russian media, the war's main goal is the denazification of Ukraine and to free the country's oppressed Russian inhabitants. Internationally, though, this is largely disputed, because although there are certain neo-Nazi regiments in the Ukrainian military, the same can also be said for Russia. And even though there is a large Russian minority population in Ukraine, of whom many are fighting for independence, there is no real evidence for the oppression of the Russian populace. Those people also suffer from the war in the same way everyone else is. Many experts assume instead that Putin's actions are supposed to prevent a possible partnership between Ukraine and the West, or even a closer relationship with NATO. An independent, Western-oriented Ukraine would not only be bad for Putin's influence on the region, but also for Russia's economy. But in the end, one thing is clear. War is always the worst option, as it brings suffering, death, and destruction.
엄청 비디오 잘 만들었다. 되게 쉽게 잘 설명했네.
이거 보면서 되게 공부 많이 했어.
저번에 한번 저희 다룬 적 있어요 이거 뉴스 스테이션에서.
어떤 거?
I don't think you were there though. Yeah. Continue.
First, I'm gonna talk about the reason why the war has started. First, the Ukraine war. It was the invasion of the Russia in February 24. The Russian army crossed the border of the Belarus and invade to the Ukraine. The capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. The Russian President Vladimir Putin insists that it wasn't just a military operation with the Belarus, and he promised that he won't hurt any citizen of the Ukraine. The main reason that Putin argued that the Ukraine should be same territory with Russia, because the first reason is the same reason, same history. These two countries are descendants from East Slavic people and share lots of history together until the Soviet Union has divided in 1990s. After the Soviet Union has been divided, many of country who has been in the Soviet Union keep being a member of NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And if Ukraine, and there was some signs that Ukraine wants to get in this group. If the Ukraine gets to in the NATO, the Russia's capital Moscow can be invaded in any time easily. So by this reason, Russia is using force to occupy this land in Ukraine. Second, I'm gonna explain about the Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. Actually, he is comedian until the 2019, and he made in 2020 he acted as actor. In 2019, he made a political party and won for presidential election. In 2020, he became a president of Ukraine. At first time, many critics blamed that he is not working as the president. He just pretend to be like president. He shows lots of aspects as comedian and actor. However, this war has been, and many of critics thinks that the Zelensky would go to the other country and evacuate. And however,
Evacuate. Well,
How-
instead.
Instead, he still left in Ukraine and surprised many of critics, and he showed his leadership and confidence about this war. Third, I'm gonna mention about the pain of the war. Mention pain of the war. The death toll of the soldier is Ukraine is almost 10,000 people. In Russia, 120,000 people are dead. This shows how this war is very cruel and how
Deadly.
Deadly and took it too much. Actually, the civilian casualties is
Civilian
casualties are 6,000 people in Ukraine.
I think there are more than that.
Before I said that Putin in the beginning of the war said he won't hurt any citizen in the Ukraine, but he's very.
Yeah, he was lying.
Many critics blame that he was lying and invaded the Ukraine. The world and war situation. The big reason is twice, and the first reason is the soaring prices of flour. Ukraine
Flour.
is flour. The Ukraine is the world 15% of flour production,
Yeah.
and by this war, Ukraine became destructed and became a wasteland. So they can make many flours in this is the Ukraine territory, and they can actually produce many flours.
Produce any flour,
Any
right?
flour. So many of countries were actually suffering from food problems.
Yeah.
second, the soaring prices of gas. Russia is very important place to produce gas, and actually they just not produce gas and just going to the war. So many of gas prices were very highly, and many who owns automobile is really suffering from the prices of the gas. Okay, first, when was the war
When
started?
did
When did the war started?
when did it start?
When did it start?
2022 February 24th.
Yes. It's
구글
true.
찾은 거 아니야 너?
Who is the president of the Ukraine?
젤렌스키.
Full name.
폰에.
Vladimir Zelensky.
Thank you for listening.
예전에 이거 한번 다룬 적 있어가지고 내용이 더 잘 들어온 것 같아요.